The sound of gravel crunching under tires at 3 in the morning isn't something you expect to hear in your own driveway, especially when your wife told you she was spending the night at her sister's place. I'd been up late working on the Henderson account presentation, fueled by nothing but coffee and determination to land the biggest client my marketing firm had ever pursued. The dining room table was covered with concept boards, and my laptop screen glowed with revenue projections that could change everything for Thompson Marketing Solutions. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. But that sound made me freeze. Through the sheer curtains of our Cedar Park home, I watched a familiar black pickup truck roll quietly into our driveway. Ryan Collins stepped out, and what happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Instead of knocking or ringing the doorbell like any normal visitor would, he walked straight to the decorative rock beside our front porch, the one Jessica had insisted we needed for curb appeal. He reached underneath and pulled out our spare house key. My blood turned to ice as I watched my wife's personal trainer unlock our front door like he owned the place. This wasn't a break-in. This was an invitation. Jessica had given him our spare key, and apparently permission to use our home whenever he pleased. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. While I'd been working 16-hour days to build something for our future, my wife had been building something entirely different behind my back. I stayed perfectly still in the dark dining room, listening to Ryan's footsteps on our hardwood floors as he made himself comfortable in our living room. The sound of our refrigerator opening echoed through the house, followed by the pop of a beer can. He was treating our home like his personal retreat, and the casual way he moved around suggested this wasn't his first time here. How many nights had I been at the office while another man relaxed in my house, drinking my beer, probably sitting in my favorite chair? The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd been planning to surprise Jessica with the news about the Henderson account. If we landed this client, it would mean financial security, maybe even enough for the vacation to Europe she'd been dreaming about. I'd been sacrificing sleep and social time, missing dinners and weekend plans, all because I wanted to give her the life she deserved, and this was how she repaid my dedication. 20 minutes later, I heard the front door open again. Laugh carried through the house, followed by Ryan's deeper chuckle. They were being quiet, but not that quiet. They thought I was safely tucked away at the office for another all-nighter, just like I'd been doing for the past 3 months. I heard Jessica's voice, muffled but unmistakable, telling Ryan that I probably wouldn't be home until dawn. Been practically living at that office, she said, her tone carrying a mix of annoyance and dismissal that made my stomach turn. Sometimes I wonder if he even remembers he has a wife. His loss, Ryan replied, and I could hear the smugness in his voice. A woman like you shouldn't be left alone so much. I wanted to storm into that living room and confront them both, but something held me back. Maybe it was shock, or maybe some deeper instinct told me I needed to hear more before I acted. Either way, I remained frozen in my chair, surrounded by the marketing materials that suddenly seemed pointless. Jessica and I had been married for 4 years, together for 6. We'd met during my final year at UT Austin, when she was a sophomore studying interior design. Back then, she'd seemed impressed by my ambition, my plans to start my own company. She'd supported my decision to turn down corporate job offers and strike out on my own, even when it meant lean months and ramen dinners. Or at least I thought. She'd supported it. You know what the funny thing is? Jessica continued, and I could hear her settling onto our couch. He keeps talking about this big client, how it's going to change everything for us. But what's the point of having money if you never have time to enjoy it? Exactly, Ryan agreed. Life's too short to spend it working yourself to death. That's why I keep my gym schedule flexible. Work to live, don't live to work. The casual way they discussed my life choices, my sacrifices, made my hands clench into fists. Here I was, building something meaningful, something that could secure our future. And they were treating it like some kind of character flaw. Ryan owned a small CrossFit gym that barely broke even most months, but somehow his perspective on work-life balance made him the wise one in this conversation. I thought about all the times Jessica had complained about me working late, all the dinners I'd missed, all the weekend plans that got postponed because of client deadlines. I'd always promised her it was temporary, that once the business was stable, we'd have more time together. She'd seemed understanding, even encouraging. But apparently she'd been finding comfort elsewhere while I was grinding away at building our future. The sound of movement from the living room snapped me back to the present. I heard Jessica's phone buzzing and her sharp intake of breath. "What is it?" Ryan asked. "Mike just texted. He's coming home early tonight. The client meeting got moved to tomorrow morning." The panic in her voice was unmistakable, and it confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't an innocent friendship. This was betrayal, plain and simple. I looked at my phone and saw the text I'd sent 20 minutes ago telling her I was wrapping up and would be home soon. I'd been excited to share some good news about the Henderson account preliminary discussions, but now that message had become a warning signal for my cheating wife. "You need to go," Jessica whispered urgently. "Eustace." "The back door. He can't see your truck." The sound of hurried movement filled the house. I heard the backsliding door open and close, then Jessica's footsteps rushing upstairs. By the time I heard her turning on the shower, presumably to wash away any evidence of Ryan's visit, I was already formulating my next move. I sat there, in the darkness, surrounded by the work that had apparently cost me my marriage, and realized that everything I thought I was building had been built on a foundation of lies. Jessica hadn't just given Ryan our spare key. She'd given him access to our entire life, and now it was time to change the locks, metaphorically speaking. The question wasn't whether I could forgive this betrayal. The question was what I was going to do about it. As I listened to the shower running upstairs, washing away the evidence of my wife's deception, I began planning my response. If Jessica wanted to play games with our marriage, then it was time she learned that two could play that game. But first, I needed proof, and I needed a plan. The next morning arrived with the kind of Texas heat that makes you grateful for air conditioning. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling while Jessica lay beside me, probably dreaming about her personal trainer. She'd come to bed smelling like lavender body wash, her hair still damp from that convenient shower. When she kissed my forehead and whispered "Good night, honey," I had to fight the urge to ask her how Ryan's beer tasted. By 6 a.m. I was already dressed and heading to the office, but not for the reasons Jessica assumed. I had calls to make and arrangements to handle before the Henderson presentation. The irony wasn't lost on me that landing this account would give me the financial independence to make some serious changes in my life. Sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of timing. Dave Parker was already at his desk when I called, despite the early hour. My college roommate had always been an early riser, something that served him well in his IT consulting business. More importantly, Dave had connections with people who specialized in discreet investigations. "Mike, preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Everything okay? You sound like you've been hit by a truck." "I need a favor, Dave. A big one, and I need it handled quietly." There was a pause on the other end. Dave and I had been through enough together that he could read the tone in my voice. "Jessica's cheating. I caught her personal trainer using our spare key to come into the house last night. I need proof before I make any moves." Dave let out a low whistle. "Jesus, Mike. I'm sorry. I know someone who can help. Discreet professional gets. Results? How much proof do you need? Enough to make sure I come out of this divorce with what I deserve. I've been busting my ass to build something, and I'm not going to let her take half of it because she couldn't keep her legs closed." After hanging up with Dave, I spent the morning preparing for the Henderson presentation with a focus I didn't know I possessed. Anger, it turned out, was an excellent motivator. Every slide, every projection, every marketing strategy was delivered with the precision of someone who had nothing left to lose. When Richard Henderson shook my hand at the end of the meeting and said, "Welcome to the family, Mike. This partnership is going to be incredible," I felt the first genuine smile I'd managed in 24 hours. The Henderson account wasn't just a client, it was freedom. 3 years of guaranteed revenue, enough to expand the business and secure my financial future regardless of what happened with my marriage. I should have been celebrating, but instead, I found myself sitting in my truck in the parking lot, calling the private investigator Dave had recommended. Marcus Chen had a voice like gravel and spoke with the efficiency of someone who'd had this conversation countless times before. Mr. Thompson, I understand you need documentation of marital infidelity. My rate is $200 a day plus expenses. Typical case like this takes about a week to 10 days to gather sufficient evidence. How sufficient? Photos, video, documentation of meetings, financial records if there's suspicious spending. Enough to make your attorney very happy, and your wife's attorney very nervous. I hired him on the spot. The rest of the week passed in a surreal haze. Jessica continued her routine of affectionate wife during the day and secret meets at night. She'd started going to yoga classes that seemed to run unusually late, girls' nights that never resulted in any photos on social media. Meanwhile, I played the part of the oblivious workaholic husband, staying late at the office and coming home exhausted. What Jessica didn't know was that I was using those late nights productively. I'd hired a locksmith to change all the locks on the house. I was telling him I'd lost my keys and wanted an upgrade for security reasons. I'd also started moving important documents and valuables to a safety deposit box. If this marriage was heading for a crash, I was going to make sure I had a parachute. On Thursday evening, Marcus called with an update that made my stomach drop despite knowing what was coming. Mr. Thompson, I've got what you need. Your wife has been meeting with Mr. Collins 3 to 4 times a week for the past 2 weeks. I've been watching. They've been to his apartment, a hotel on South Lamar, and yes, your house when you're not there. I've got photos, video, and timestamps. She's also been charging dinner dates and gifts to a credit card you might not know about. What kind of gifts? Expensive ones? There's a receipt for a Rolex from last Tuesday. Either your wife has expensive tastes in personal gifts, or she's buying presents for her boyfriend with your money. The Rolex detail hit me like a physical blow. Jessica had been asking me about getting a new watch for months, saying her old one was outdated. I told her to wait until after the Henderson deal closed, that we'd celebrate with something nice. Apparently, she'd decided not to wait, and Ryan was the one getting the celebration gift. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Marcus's preliminary report spread out in front of me. Color photographs showed Jessica and Ryan entering his apartment building, walking hand in hand through the mall, and sharing intimate dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. The timestamps revealed a pattern of deception that went back months, not weeks. While I'd been working to secure our future, she'd been systematically betraying our present. The financial records were even more damaging. Jessica had opened a credit card in her maiden name and charged nearly $15,000 in the past 3 months. Dinners, hotels, shopping trips, and yes, that Rolex. She'd been funding her affair with money from our joint savings account, transferring funds. To cover the credit card payments and probably assuming I was too busy to notice, I poured myself a whiskey and tried to process the magnitude of her betrayal. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or an emotional affair that had gotten out of hand. This was calculated, ongoing deception that involved stealing from our shared resources to finance her relationship with another man. She'd been planning this for months, possibly years. The worst part was remembering all the times she'd complained about money. All the guilt trips about me working too much and not spending enough on us. Meanwhile, she'd been spending freely on Ryan while making me feel selfish for building a business that would benefit both of us. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Working late again? You're missing dinner again? I stared at the message, noting the passive-aggressive tone that had become her default communication style. For months, I'd been apologizing for missed dinners and canceled plans, feeling guilty about the demands of growing a business. I realized she'd probably preferred my absence. It gave her more time with Ryan and let her play the role of neglected wife to justify her choices. I typed back, Henderson deal closed today. Big celebration coming soon. Her response came quickly. That's great, honey. We should do something special this weekend. The enthusiasm in her text felt hollow now that I knew the truth. She wasn't excited about our success. She was probably calculating how much more money would be available for her secret spending. The thought made me sick. That weekend never came, at least not the way Jessica expected, because by Friday afternoon I had everything I needed to change the game completely. Marcus's final report was comprehensive enough to make any divorce attorney salivate, and my own financial preparations were complete. The Henderson contract was signed, my business was secure, and my marriage was about to become a very expensive. Lesson for my cheating wife. Saturday morning, I woke up early and made coffee for two, just like I had every weekend for the past 4 years. But this would be the last time. When Jessica came downstairs in her silk pajamas, smiling and talking about plans for the day, I handed her the envelope that would change everything. Jessica's face went pale as she opened the envelope and saw the photographs. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through image after image of herself with Ryan, and I watched years of lies crumble in real time. The silence stretched between us like a chasm, broken only by the sound of coffee brewing and the morning birds outside our kitchen window. "Mike, I can explain," she started, but her voice cracked on the first word. "Can you explain the $15,000 you've spent on him? Can you explain giving him our house key? Can you explain the Rolex?" I kept my voice steady, almost conversational. The anger had crystallized into something colder and more focused over the past week. She set the photos down and looked at me with eyes that seemed to be calculating her next move, rather than showing genuine remorse. "You're never here, Mike. Do you know what it's like being married to someone who cares more about his business than his wife? So you decided to console yourself with my money and another man in my house? It's not like that. Ryan understands me. He listens when I talk. He makes time for me. When's the last time we went on a real date? When's the last time you asked me about my day without checking your phone?" The deflection was classic Jessica, turning her betrayal into my failure. For a moment, I almost felt the familiar guilt creeping in, the same guilt that had driven me to work harder and sacrifice more to make her happy. But the photographs on the table served as a reality check. "You're right," I said, surprising her. "I have been working a lot, building something for our future." "While you've been building something else entirely?" Jessica's expression shifted again, this time to the manipulative sweetness she used when she wanted something. "Mike, baby, we can work through this. I made a mistake, okay? It didn't mean anything. You just landed that big account, right? Can take a vacation, spend some time together, rebuild what we had. What we had was built on me giving and you taking. I'm done with that arrangement." "You don't mean that? We've been together for 6 years. We have a life here, a home, plans." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. "Actually, Jessica, I do mean it. These are divorce papers. I'm filing on Monday." The mask finally slipped. Completely. The sweet, apologetic wife disappeared and was replaced by someone I barely recognized. "You can't be serious. Over some harmless flirting, Mike. You're being ridiculous." "Harmless flirting doesn't involve credit cards and house keys." She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. "Fine. You want to play hardball? Good luck. Texas is a community property state. Half of everything you've built is mine, including that precious business you care about more than your own wife." "About that," I said, opening the folder. "You might want to read Section 12 of our prenuptial agreement." Jessica froze. "What prenuptial agreement? We never signed a prenuptial agreement." "Actually, we did. Remember when we went to that lawyer's office before the wedding? You said it was just paperwork for beneficiaries and insurance. You were so busy planning the reception that you signed without reading." The color drained from her face as she snatched the papers from my hands. I watched her eyes scan the document, seeing the exact moment she realized what she'd signed. The prenup was ironclad. It's protecting the business I'd started before our marriage and any assets acquired through that business. She'd get the house. And half of our savings, but Thompson Marketing Solutions and the Henderson contract were mine alone. This isn't legal. I'll contest it. I'll say you tricked me. You can try. But you signed it in front of 2 witnesses and a notary. Your signature is right there, along with your driver's license number and a copy of your ID. Jessica slumped into her chair, and for the first time since I'd known her, she seemed truly defeated. But the moment didn't last long. Her expression hardened, and I could see her regrouping for another attack. "You know what, Mike? You deserve this. You deserve to be alone with your precious business and your precious clients. I hope the money keeps you warm at night because that's all you'll have. I'll take my chances." The rest of Saturday was a blur of Jessica packing bags and making phone calls. I heard her crying in our bedroom, then yelling at someone on the phone, probably Ryan. The dramatic performance might have worked on ice 6 months ago, but I'd learned to see through it. Every tear and every angry outburst was just another manipulation tactic. By Sunday evening, she was gone. The house felt different without her constant chatter and the underlying tension I hadn't realized I'd been living with. I walked through the rooms we'd shared, noticing how much lighter everything seemed without her presence weighing it down. A Monday morning brought a call from Dave that changed everything again. "Like, you need to get down to your office right now. There's someone here asking about you." "What kind of someone?" "The kind that designs logos and websites and just moved to Austin from Portland. Her name's Amanda Martinez, and she's got a business proposal that might interest you." Amanda sitting in my office lobby reviewing a portfolio that looked more professional than anything I'd seen in months. She was petite with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a blazer that somehow managed to look both casual and professional. When she looked up and smiled, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: genuine interest. "In getting to know someone new, Mr. Thompson?" "I'm Amanda Martinez. I heard through the grapevine that you just landed a major client and might be looking to expand your creative services. Word travels fast in Austin. Small business community. We all know each other's successes and failures. I specialize in brand identity and digital marketing for companies in growth phases. Based on what I've heard about Thompson Marketing Solutions, you might be ready for some fresh perspectives." We spent an hour discussing business strategy, and I found myself impressed by her knowledge and insight. She asked intelligent questions about my client base and offered solutions I hadn't considered. More importantly, she listened when I talked and offered her own ideas instead of just agreeing with everything I said. "Can I ask you something?" Amanda said as we wrapped up the meeting. "You seem like someone who's either celebrating a major victory or recovering from a major disaster." "Which is it?" "Both, actually. Just landed the biggest account in my company's history and filed for divorce in the same week." "Ah, the classic good news, bad news scenario. Which one are you focusing on?" "Definitely the good news." "The bad news turned out to be a blessing in disguise." Amanda smiled, and I noticed she had a small scar above her left eyebrow that somehow made her more interesting rather than less attractive. Those are usually the best kind of disasters. Is it clear? The way for better things. When she left that afternoon, she'd agreed to a consulting contract that would help Thompson Marketing Solutions handle the creative demands of the Henderson account. More importantly, she'd given me something I hadn't had in years: a conversation with someone who saw potential instead of problems. That evening, I came home to a quiet house and realized I wasn't lonely. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt peaceful. No walking on eggshells, no wondering what mood Jessica would be in, no guilt about working late or missing dinner. Plans. Just the satisfaction of a good day's work and the anticipation of building something new. I poured myself a beer and sat on the back patio, watching the sunset paint the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mike, we need to talk. This isn't over." I deleted the message without responding and blocked the number. Jessica was right about one thing. This wasn't over, but it wasn't going to play out the way she expected. I had learned the difference between being alone and being lonely, and I wasn't afraid of either anymore. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm I hadn't experienced in years. Work days that ended at reasonable hours, dinners eaten at an actual table instead of hunched over my laptop, and evenings spent reading books I'd been meaning to get to for months. Amanda's consulting work had quickly evolved into something more substantial as Thompson Marketing Solutions adapted to handle the Henderson account's creative demands. She had a way of approaching problems that complemented my analytical style perfectly. Where I saw spreadsheets and market research, she saw stories and emotional connections. Our working relationship had developed an easy chemistry that made even the most challenging projects feel manageable. More than that, Amanda seemed genuinely interested in building something lasting rather than extracting immediate benefits. The contrast with my marriage couldn't have been more stark. Jessica had always approached our relationship like a transaction, keeping score of who did what for whom and constantly negotiating for better terms. Amanda approached our professional partnership with a generosity that extended beyond business hours. She'd stay late to perfect a campaign concept, offer insights that saved me from costly mistakes, and celebrate client wins as if they were her own victories. Thursday evening brought an unexpected complication when Jessica showed up at my office. Building? I was walking to my truck when I heard her voice calling my name across the parking lot. She looked different somehow, more polished than usual, but also desperate around the edges. Her hair was freshly styled, and she was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, probably purchased with money she'd somehow acquired since moving out. "Mike, please, just 5 minutes. We need to talk. We've talked multiple times. Through lawyers, this is different. I've been thinking about everything, about us, about what I threw away. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to fix it." I leaned against my truck and crossed my arms, curious to see where this performance was heading. "And how exactly do you plan to fix 4 months of lying and cheating?" "Ryan was a mistake. Stupid, meaningless mistake that I regret every day. He was just there when you weren't, and I was lonely and angry, and I made the worst decision of my life. Just one decision. Because the credit card statements suggest it was quite a few decisions, made repeatedly over several months. Jessica's composure cracked slightly. "Okay, fine. It was more than one mistake. But Mike, we had 6 years together. 6 good years. Before things went wrong, doesn't that count for something? It counts for exactly what it was worth. Apparently not much, since you were willing to throw it away for a personal trainer and some expensive dinners." I wasn't thinking clearly. I was hurt and frustrated, and I acted out like a child. But I've learned from this, Mike. I know what I lost now. What you lost was your meal ticket and your safety net. Nothing more. The mask slipped again, revealing the calculating look I'd learned to recognize. You can't possibly be happy alone in that big house. You're not the type to stay single, Mike. You need someone to take care of, someone to build a life with. You can start over. Do it right this time. I am doing it right this time. Without you. Jessica's voice took on a sharper edge. "With who? That little designer girl I heard about? Please. No. She's using you just like everyone else in business does. At least I loved you. You loved what I could provide. There's a difference. And what can she provide that I couldn't? Better sex? More exciting conversation? A prettier face?"
Honesty would be a good start.
Jessica laughed bitterly. "Honesty. Mike, you don't want honesty. You want someone to tell you how wonderful and successful you are while pretending. Not to notice that you're married to your work. At least I was upfront about wanting more from life than being a business widow. Upfront would have been telling me you were unhappy instead of opening secret credit cards and giving my house key to your boyfriend. Our house key. It was our house, our marriage, our life together. You seem to forget that I helped build. What you have now, by doing what exactly? Spending my money while I worked? Complaining about every sacrifice we made to grow the business. Undermining my confidence whenever I faced challenges. I supported you through the early years when the business barely made ends meet. I believed in your dreams when nobody else did. No, Jessica? You tolerated my dreams as long as they didn't inconvenience you. The moment success required real sacrifice, you found someone else to entertain you." The conversation was interrupted by Amanda's voice calling out across the parking lot. "Mike, is everything okay?" I turned to see her walking toward us, carrying a portfolio and looking concerned. She must have worked late and was just heading home. Jessica's expression immediately shifted to something predatory as she sized up the competition. "So this is her," Jessica said, loud enough for Amanda to hear. "The replacement model." Amanda reached us and stopped a respectful distance away, clearly picking up on the tension. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt anything personal. Just wanted to make sure you were safe." "How thoughtful," Jessica said with false sweetness. "You must be Amanda." "I'm Jessica, Mike's wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected. The divorce was finalized last week. Amanda looked between us with the kind of intelligence that missed nothing. "I'll just head to my car." "Mike, see you tomorrow for the Henderson campaign review?" "Actually," Jessica said, stepping closer to Amanda. Maybe you should know what you're getting into. Mike is fantastic at building businesses and terrible at building relationships. He'll work you into the ground, just like he did me, then act surprised when you need more than a paycheck and a pat on the head. Amanda's expression remained calm and professional. That hasn't been my experience at all. But then again, I knew what I was signing up for when I chose to work with a successful entrepreneur. Some people appreciate dedication and others see it as a neglect. I guess it depends on your perspective. Your perspective will change when you realize he loves his clients more than he'll ever love you. Maybe, Amanda said with a slight smile, but at least I'll know he's faithful to his commitments. The barb hit its target perfectly. Jessica's face flushed red and her voice rose. You don't know anything about our marriage or what I went through? You're right, I don't. But I know enough about integrity to recognize it when I see it. Jessica turned back to me, her last attempt at reconciliation dissolving into fury. You know what, Mike? You deserve each other. Two workaholics who think success is more important than human connection. Let me know how that works out for you in 10 years when you're still eating dinner alone at your desk. I'll take that risk. It's fine. But when this little fantasy falls apart, don't come crawling back to me. I won't be waiting around for you to figure out what you really lost. Jessica stormed off toward a car I didn't recognize, probably borrowed, from whatever friend was currently housing her. I watched her drive away and felt nothing but relief that this chapter of my life was finally closed. Amanda waited until Jessica's car disappeared before speaking. Well, that was intense. Are you okay? Better than okay. I'm free. She seemed to think I was some kind of threat to your reconciliation. There was never going to be a reconciliation. Jessica just took a while to accept that reality. And am I? Threat to something, I mean? I looked at Amanda, really looked at her, and saw someone who had chosen to work late perfecting a campaign for a client she'd never met. Someone who had walked across a parking lot to make sure I was safe. Someone who had stood her ground against my ex-wife's attacks with grace and intelligence. I hope so, I said. Amanda smiled, the kind of genuine smile that reaches the eyes and transforms an entire face. Because I was starting to think this was going to stay strictly professional. Forever? Well, we wouldn't want that. Definitely not. So, are you hungry? I know a place that serves excellent dinners to people who aren't eating alone at their desks. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I said yes to an invitation that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the possibility of building something better than what I'd lost. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same kitchen where I'd discovered Jessica's betrayal, but everything had changed. The morning sun streamed through windows that Amanda had helped me replace, with larger ones that let in more light. The house felt alive in a way it never had before, filled with laughter and genuine conversation, instead of tense silences and passive-aggressive comments. Amanda moved through the space like she belonged there, which she did. We'd made it official. 3 weeks ago when she'd moved in, bringing her collection of vintage design books and an absurd number of coffee mugs. Watching her make breakfast while humming off-key to some song on the radio, I wondered how I'd ever mistaken Jessica's demanding presence for love. The Henderson account had exceeded all projections, leading to 2 more major clients and the expansion of Thompson Marketing Solutions into a proper agency. Amanda's creative direction had been instrumental in that growth. But more importantly, she'd brought a perspective that made work feel collaborative rather than isolating. We built campaigns together, celebrated wins together, and when challenges arose, we faced them as a team. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. Jessica's getting married to Ryan next month. Thought you should know in case she tries to stir up drama. I showed Amanda the message over coffee. She raised an eyebrow and took another sip before responding. Good for them. They deserve each other. That's exactly what I was thinking. Are you okay with it? I mean, she was a big part of your life for a long time. I considered the question seriously. Jessica's wedding should have triggered some kind of emotional response, shouldn't it? Regret, jealousy, nostalgia for what we'd shared. Instead, I felt nothing but mild curiosity about how long their marriage would last before Ryan realized what I'd learned the hard way. I'm fine with it. It means she's moved on and won't be showing up in parking lots anymore. Plus, now Ryan gets to deal with the credit card statements. Poor bastard probably doesn't know what he's signed up for. Amanda laughed, the sound brightening the entire kitchen. You're terrible, but you're probably right. Later that morning, as we were getting ready for another productive day at the office, Amanda handed me an envelope that looked suspiciously familiar. What's this? Open it and see. Inside was a lease agreement for a larger office space downtown, big, enough for the expanded team we'd been talking about hiring. But that wasn't what made me stop breathing for a moment. Attached to the lease was a partnership agreement making Amanda an equal partner in Thompson Marketing Solutions. Amanda, this is crazy, presumptuous, too much too fast. Perfect. It's perfect. She smiled and wrapped her arms around my neck. I was hoping you'd say that. I've gotten kind of attached to this little business we've built together, our business and our future. The irony wasn't lost on me that Jessica had demanded half of everything I'd built while contributing nothing. While Amanda had earned her partnership through talent, dedication, and genuine care for our shared success, she'd never asked for anything beyond fair compensation and the opportunity to prove herself. Everything else had been freely given and gratefully received. That afternoon, we signed the partnership papers and the lease for our new office space. As we walked through the empty rooms that would soon house our expanded agency, Amanda pointed out possibilities I couldn't see and shared visions for growth that aligned perfectly with my own ambitions. Conference room here, creative space there, and maybe a coffee bar because we're going to be spending a lot of time here. Not too much time. I've learned the importance of work-life balance. Have you now? And who taught you that valuable lesson? This smart, beautiful woman who makes me want to come home for dinner. She sounds wonderful. You should probably marry her. The words hung in the air between us, spoken casually but carrying weight we both recognized. We'd talked around the subject of marriage before, always in hypothetical terms or distant futures. But standing in our new office space, having just signed papers that legally bound our professional lives together, the next step seemed both obvious and inevitable. Should probably ask her properly first. She might say yes if you did. That evening, I took Amanda to the restaurant where we'd had our first non-business dinner 6 months ago. Same table, same view of the Austin skyline, but everything else was different. Instead of two people carefully exploring the possibility of something more, we were partners in every sense that mattered, building something together that neither of us could have created alone. Over dessert, I pulled out a small velvet box. That had been burning a hole in my pocket for 3 weeks. Ana Martinez, will you marry me and make this partnership completely official? She opened the box to reveal a simple solitaire diamond, elegant and timeless, rather than flashy and expensive. The opposite of everything Jessica would have wanted and exactly right for the woman sitting across from me. Yes, Mike Thompson, I will absolutely marry you and make this partnership completely official. As I slipped the ring onto her finger, I thought about the spare house key that had ended my first marriage. Jessica had given Ryan access to our home as a symbol of betrayal and deception. Tonight, I was giving Amanda access to everything I had and everything I hoped to build, not as a desperate gesture or a manipulation tactic, but as an invitation to create something better together. The difference between those two moments perfectly captured the difference between my two relationships. One had been built on taking and demanding and keeping score. The other was built on giving and sharing and growing together. Later, as we sat on the patio of our home planning our wedding and discussing the future of our agency, Amanda leaned against my shoulder and sighed contentedly. You know what the best part of this is? We both get to keep our house keys. I laughed and kissed the top of her head, grateful for a woman who understood that the best partnerships are built on trust, not control. Jessica had given Ryan our spare key as a weapon against our marriage. Amanda and I were giving each other everything as a foundation for our future. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.